So we finally got our first real look at Apple's first foldable iPhone, and honestly, this is not what anyone was expecting. Because instead of copying Samsung, Google, or literally anyone else, Apple went in a completely different direction. And at first glance, it actually looks wrong. But once you understand what Apple is doing here, this might be one of the smartest foldable designs we've seen yet. Let's talk about it. So these CAD renders of the iPhone Fold were leaked by a German tech publisher, and right away, the dimensions raise eyebrows. When folded, it measures roughly 120.6 millimeters tall and 83.8 millimeters wide, giving it a 9:13 aspect ratio. That's extremely wide and very short. And yes, at first, it looks like Apple is copying the original Pixel Passport style form factor, but here's where things get interesting. The iPhone Fold's cover display is 14% shorter and 5.5% wider than Google's. Compared to the Galaxy Z Fold 7, it's 24% shorter and 14% wider. Even compared to Apple's own iPhone 17, it's roughly 20% shorter and 17% wider. And that sounds bad until you realize it's completely intentional. The outer display is just 5.49 inches, which is tiny compared to other foldables. But this is where Apple does something genius. Samsung spent years trying to make the Z Fold's outer screen feel like a normal phone. Apple didn't even try, because this display isn't meant to replace the iPhone 18 Pro Max, and it's not meant to compete with Apple's flagship phones at all. Instead, it fills a gap Apple hasn't touched in years, a truly small flagship that actually makes sense. And yes, with a punch hole design, it's already more usable than the iPhone 13 mini ever was. But the real story starts when you open it. Inside, the display jumps to around 7.7 inches, and that one number tells you everything about Apple's strategy. Samsung always markets its folds as a phone that turns into a tablet. Apple flipped that idea completely. This isn't a phone that sometimes becomes a tablet. It's a tablet-first device that just happens to fold down. Instead of a near-square layout, the aspect ratio is much closer to an iPad mini, and in real-life scenarios, it completely changes how you use it. You get more horizontal space, videos fit better with fewer black bars, and multitasking actually feels balanced instead of cramped. And here's the twist, this thing might actually be better than the iPad mini itself. According to the CAD data, when fully unfolded, it's just 4.8 millimeters thick, which is 24% thinner than the iPad mini and even thinner than the iPhone Air. To pull that off, Apple ditched Face ID on the first generation Fold, which means Touch ID is officially back. But that's not even the wild part. You're getting a full immersive display with an under-display camera, higher resolution than the iPad mini, and the most advanced camera system Apple can put into a foldable device. Basically, this is a foldable iPad mini that can shoot like a flagship iPhone. But here's the problem, because this is where the whole plan starts to fall apart. Current expectations point to a September 2026 announcement, likely alongside the iPhone 18 lineup. But availability is a different story. According to Ming-Chi Kuo, Apple is still struggling with production yields and hasn't fully finalized the hinge design yet. Apple wants this thing nearly crease-free, and because of that, real availability could easily slip into 2027. And if that happens, Apple could have a serious problem. Because by then, the Galaxy Z Fold 8 will already be out, and it'll have upgrades that make the first-gen iPhone Fold feel incomplete. I broke down exactly why that matters in another video.